Hey everybody! Thanks for taking some time out of your day to join us today on our latest live stream. I'm Chris Wall. I'm the producer of the Wingfeather Saga animated series. So glad to have you with us. We have got a really cool stream for you I'm really excited about. A lot of you have asked, what's it like adapting the great Wingfeather Saga books into an animated series? What's that process? And we're going to take you into a deep dive on that. So if you're an aspiring writer or just love to read books and curious about that process, today is going to be really cool. And for all of you fans out there, we're going to give you some insights into some choices we've been making as we've been working heavily on season 1. Andrew is actually out on tour. Some of you don't know this, but Andrew Peterson, the author, is a singer-songwriter as well. And a lot of folks know him as a author, and he has this other career. It's actually a longer career, and he is out right now. He has a great Christmas tour. You can look for it in your area. Maybe it's called Behold the Lamb of God, and it's this wonderful Christmas celebration of the narrative of the life of Jesus as found through the Old Testament into the New Testament, and it's awesome. We got to see it here in Nashville just a couple nights ago. Got to go with our Wingfeather Saga team. It was really great. So we're going to talk about writing, and we're going to talk about some other really fun news. But first, well, okay, I'll tease you with this part. We're going to talk a little bit about season 2. I know. Wait. Season 1 hasn't even been out yet. I know, but you're going to want to stay to the end. We're going to show you a sneak peek at some stuff coming up and some news about season 2. It's awesome. Trust me, worth hanging out for. We have just stepped into the phase of casting. Isn't that amazing? And we thought it'd be so fun to invite you guys into this. So we sent an email to our Wingfeather email list. If you're not on that list, you can join us. Go to wingfeathersaga.com, and there will be a pop-up that says, join our email list, and you'll get all the latest information. I will tell you, that's becoming increasingly important. You can't really rely on social media anymore, even YouTube, things like that, to tell you news that's coming out. And an email list, I know it feels all kind of like I'm putting a postcard in the mail for some. I have a bunch of our team, actually, that don't really do email. Just text me, please. But email is a good thing. If you didn't get an email, you missed this news. And the news is you can join us in our casting process. So cool. So we've opened this up. If you go to wingfeathersaga.com/casting, and there it is on the screen, you can submit an audition that we're going to get to hear and see if you can be considered for one of the characters. It's been very exciting on this end. Have had a lot of response to that since we sent it out to our email list last week. And the deadline for that first round of submissions is actually tonight at midnight. So if you have not seen it, this is news to you, you want to join in, please jump out there on that casting site and submit. We've had questions that have come up a number of times, and so we've been quickly putting those things out on there's an FAQ on that page that you can go answer a lot of the questions that you may have about that process and what we're doing. But please go check it out. We're excited to invite you into that. I will say, too, of course, our cast is only so big. And so we are going to listen to all of these, but we may not cast as many of you as you would hope. And the other thing I want to say, this is really important, is that we are casting children in the children's roles. We know for a lot of series, and I've certainly been a part of that in some of the work I've done, adults do a brilliant job playing children's voices. But in this case, we just love the sound and the precocious nature of actual children's voices. So for those roles for kids, just get that out right away, that we are excited to cast some kids. But if you have some aspiring young actors or actresses in your home that would like to audition, there's all the information is there, including how to do that. So wingfeathersaga.com/casting, and you can learn more about what we're doing there. So hurry up. We don't want to miss hearing from you. All right. I want to talk about fan art for a minute. So fan art is so much fun. How many of you have read a great book or been read a great book by your parents or heard an audiobook even, or heard Andrew read aloud the Wingfeather Saga? And you had imagery happening in your brain, visuals of what different characters were like. I remember years ago hearing from artists talking about how hurriedly they wanted to draw characters and scenes from Lord of the Rings before the movies came out. Because when the movies came out, they knew it would kind of crystallize that's what it looks like. And they wanted to have their own take on it, right? Well, we're kind of in a similar space. Very soon in the new year, we're going to start showing you some of our designs for the animated series. They're not the only designs. They're just our take, but it may be a take that kind of stays in your brain and you want to get your own version out. We would love to see some of your fan art. So we're going to kind of do some fun stuff to encourage you along that path. But as you go out and share fan art with us, you can send it. The Wingfeather Saga website has some stuff you can submit there, but then you can just tag us. It's really easy on Facebook or Instagram, that kind of thing, at Wingfeather Saga or hashtag Wingfeather Saga. We'll see it, and we love to feature some of that and just celebrate your versions of different characters. And it'll be fun to see when we actually release ours, how close or different they are. Now, there's great books out in the world, like the Creaturepedia, that Andrew and, of course, his son Aiden, the new edition just came out. This is awesome. That really kind of nails down, exactly what do some of these creatures look like. And you might want to take your take on it. How different could it look? Look at these things. I mean, seriously, that's so cool. Octurtle. Anyways, so fan art, we'd love to celebrate that. In the spirit of that, we had a fan reach out after our last live stream, big fan of Wingfeather Saga, and also an illustrator, and submit some stuff that was really cool. And so we put together this little video that is highlighting just kind of her story, exposure to Wingfeather Saga, and how she wanted to respond and share some of her own art. And we want you to check that out right here.
My name is Brittany Berry. I'm a professional artist and an illustrator of wonder, adventure, and sparkly things. I first learned about the Wingfeather Saga actually through my sister. I had been listening to Andrew Peterson's music and she mentioned the books to me. And I happened to go over to a friend of mine's house, and of all the books that was on their counter, it was On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. What I love about the Wingfeather Saga series is the whimsy, the wonder, and the quality of the stories. I feel like most of the world is trying to bombard us with stories that are beautiful but have the wrong messages. And these stories are beautiful and fun, but they have the right messages. As an artist, I absolutely love the design route that they took with the animated short. It has such a lively, vibrant, colorful, impressionistic look to it that just ties so well into the fun and humor and imagination of the books themselves. I love Nicholas Cole's designs for the characters. I love John Loren's designs for the interiors that were in the short, like even just little Easter eggs of the apple cores, just a tip of the hat to Zuzab, the Ridge Runner. One of the things that stood out to me in the short film was the beautiful use of puppeting that they did. The kids go into the Fang office, and the big Fang who says checkout form.
Checkout form.
He actually wasn't a 3D model. He was an illustration that they actually puppeted. And I love seeing illustrations be given life. Like even when Mia is cooking food in the kitchen, it's so fun seeing these chunks of illustration get moved around a frying pan and just have this life of their own. For my own work, I actually focused quite a bit on fairy tale and fantasy art because there's room for imagination and creativity and wonder. The Wingfeather Saga books and the animated short, they very much have that same freedom and creativity and wonder, and that totally is right up my alley of what I love in art. I've done several example character designs, including Marilee, Rudrick, Zuzab. The reason why I chose these characters is because, honestly, in the animated short, they hadn't been done yet, so there was a chance to come up with something new. And since there are literally thousands of fangs that are referenced in the story, there's way more room to play with any kind of fang that you want to. People should really be getting so psyched about this show. I think that other artists should get really excited about it too, because there's nothing like getting inspired by other artists' work. To me, it's kind of like coals to a fire. I just want to say thank you, Andrew, Andrew Peterson for writing the Wingfeather Saga and bringing such a great series into the world. And thank you, Chris Wall, for all that you're doing to make this vision of reality. If you'd like to see more of my work, you can check out my YouTube channel, Brittany Berry Art, as well as my Instagram, Brittany Berry Art, and my website, Brittany Berry Art.
Oh man, that was fantastic. Thank you, Brittany, for sharing your story. And yeah, it was pretty special that we got to catch up with her and hear about how inspired she was reading the stories and wanting to bring it to life. So now's your chance. I'm just giving you plenty of forewarning that we're about to release in the new year a bunch of our artwork showing you what our version of these characters and locations look like. And so if you want to get those out, do that. And then just tag us. We'd love to see them. So at Wingfeather Saga, whether Facebook, Instagram, whatever, share it with us. And maybe we'll tell a few more stories like this. I think we'd like to not only professional artists like what she's doing, but also some of you out there that are just having a good time exploring. So, all right. We are so excited to bring you in. Oh, thank you, Brittany. We are excited to bring you into the writer's room. And tell you a bit about our process. So adapting from this great set of novels that we all love onto the screen, what's that process? How does it work? That sort of thing. So we're going to invite in a couple of our writers, and we've got a couple of them patching in this way. Hey, there we are. There's Lauren and Jake. And then I have my friend Doug is here in the room.
Brought my own chair.
He's fresh from the green room where he's had multiple espressos. All right. Totally normal. No problem at all. First, right in the middle here, here's Lauren. Hi. Nice to see you, Lauren. Lauren has been working in animated television for a long time, including you worked on Voltron and Troll Hunters. And then we got to have her as a writer on the Slugs and Bugs show. And just did a brilliant job. And so we're so excited to bring her in on Wingfeather Saga. She has also written on Santiago of the Seas for Nickelodeon, so I've been around a little bit. But we overlapped a little bit with DreamWorks. Wow, and we have a cat. Hello, Beethoven. Nice to see you. This is Beethoven. Beethoven is the production office cat and lap warmer and has no etiquette for times that we're not supposed to be on camera. So there you are. And I'm sure Doug is wildly allergic, and this is going to turn comedic in just a few minutes. Okay. Also want to welcome Jake. Good to see you, Jake. Jake is one half of a writing team with Kenny Ryan, who couldn't be with us today. They got their professional start over a decade ago. Makes you sound so old. When they sold a blockbuster-sized retelling of David and Goliath to Sony. I've actually read that one. I don't know if you shared that with me a long time ago, and it's brilliant. It's really, these guys, they're talented. Since then, they've written for multiple studios and production companies, including they did some work with us on VeggieTales back with DreamWorks. It was great. That's where we met. And then they have just finished 3 seasons on CBS SEAL Team. And we're huge fans of Wingfeather Saga. They actually wrote the pilot short film with us years ago and are so excited to be back with us. Good to see you, Jake. Thanks for joining. And then this guy here is Doug. This is Doug. He's my friend. He's awesome. Very funny. There are some people in your lives that there's just a certain kind of creative mix that happens. With Doug and I, it's mostly comedy. There's something about working together that we've had a lot of fun. We got to work in this context on Slugs and Bugs quite a bit. That was our first time together and had no idea how much fun that would be.
Yeah, at 2 a.m.
Mostly at 2 a.m. Yeah, with Doug on a few espressos. He is a songwriter with over 300 songs to your credit. That's incredible. He's author of various fiction and nonfiction books, including Every Moment Holy, which is definitely a gear shift. So Every Moment Holy, wonderful book of liturgies and everyday moments that we can kind of allow spiritual insight into and put voice to. And then also some really funny fiction pieces that are just brilliant. He and I, we share a love of certain types of comedy. So it's great. Good to have you. And then I did want to mention, too, our good friend Corey Edwards got to join us when we did our writer's room back at the beginning of this and is just a great collaborator. Yeah, so just want to mention him, too. All right. So today I thought we'd just do a bit of a roundtable, us sitting around talking about writing stories and a little bit about our journey together that we can share with the folks at home. about working on Wingfeather Saga. So it began with a writer's retreat to Northwind Manor. So the Rabbit Room, who was the original publisher of Wingfeather Saga books 3 and 4, that Andrew and his brother Pete founded many years ago, has this wonderful headquarters here in Nashville, and we got to retreat there for a few days earlier this year and really work hard on season 1. Aw, look at us. We're just on the porch.
Just kids.
Just
kids back then.
Based on beard growth,
happy family.
I think we're all a little younger than Jeez. Hey, there's Kenny. Yeah, that was a lovely time. And really, we set out for a week to really work on these 6 episodes that would be a part of season 1. And begin to think about, like, what does it look to adapt these into those 6 episodes? And we've done some early work to kind of think about that, and set off in a room together. This is Andrew, I think, actually reading a bit from Every Moment Holy to kind of set our time. It's great. And there's some of our character art that we had up to kind of think about these. And the first step in this process is really, what are the 6 major moments that we wanted to tell? We had some idea. Okay, I had a different idea, and if you recall, Jake and Kenny pitched differently. That I had an idea that we might tell season 1 might go into book 2. And do you remember this part? So Jake and Kenny came hard with an optional pitch. Jake, do you remember that pitch? You want to tell us what you're angling for?
Brief. I mean, I think our note was that we wanted to leave some of the meat on the bone for season 2, and that a lot of the stuff that is so great about book 1 could really fit within the 6 episode container that we were doing, and that we didn't want to burn kind of too much of the big cool stuff from book 2. So we advocated that, there was an alternate ending that is dramatically satisfying as the one that you had pitched. And this man, and you listen to our pitch.
That's right. And I am a benevolent dictator and accepted the request and allowed it to pass. Now, what's wonderful is that comes into the room and everybody goes, do we have something here? What do we think? Is that a good idea? Is it a bad idea? And we all just kind of sit with it. And that is like my favorite thing about a great writer's room, is that sense of, because we did a turn. Doug, Lauren, Kenny, Andrew, what do you guys think? What if we start and end the story here for this season? One of the things I put forward to you guys, if you recall, that was really important because of the way that we're partnered with Angel Studios and the way that our show will be released, is that we really wanted to have a tight pull through from episode to episode. That after you finish an episode, there was I got to see the next one. And certainly, as we think about the season, that when the season ends, it's like, and we're going to talk about that in a minute here about season 2, but there's that pull through. And so as we thought about the structure and like, okay, well, if this episode is about this and this one is about this and so forth. Lauren, as you came into that, tell me about some of your thoughts on that scope. We'd already talked quite a bit earlier, but this was coming into the room saying, okay, here's what we think the 6 containers to be. Tell me about kind of where your headspace was going in.
Yeah, I mean, it helped to have the book obviously to go off of, because there were definitely those moments in the book that were like, what happens next? And we just tried to make sure to hit those at the right times. So I think that was like an interesting part of the process for me to see, was like, all right, we want to achieve all of these things, but we need this most dramatic beat to happen at the end. What can we do in the episode that helps build towards that appropriately and like spaces it right, so that it's not like we're two-thirds of the way through the episode and we're at the most exciting part. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. And Doug, how about for you, coming into it, thinking about those 6 major movements almost as we went through it?
Well, I think for me, coming into it, having read the books many years ago and then more recently reading them again, part of what's exciting about translating a literary work into the film genre, or for TV or film, is that there's not it doesn't typically work with a one-to-one equivalency. And if it does, then it's probably not that great a book, right? Because it was written to be a film or to be seen on the screen. So part of the real fun of the writer's room dynamic is digging into the story and kind of taking it apart a little bit like a car engine and saying, well, we can't have this many parts in a half-hour episode or in 6 half-hour episodes. So which parts are essential? And what do we need to kind of think about reinventing a little bit in a way that stays true to the feel of the story and the world that Andrew so wonderfully created, and yet it's a completely different kind of machine when you're building a film, a visual story than it is in a novel. So I think I went into that week of the writer's room retreat really excited to see what we would come up with, knowing that it was going to be a very dynamic process, and that that we were going to, I love being in a situation where everyone is there and their job is to not have filters, right? And to not be insecure, but just to offer up every idea they have without second guessing it so that everyone else can respond to it.
That's huge. And I just for any of you aspiring writers out there, that is a big one I want to say right away is we just had a very generous group, and that was also willing to say, all right, this may be a terrible idea, but I'm going to pitch this idea. Right. And just frame it as that. Like, I'm not telling you something that's gospel. Just let me work something out. And as soon as I say it and it takes air, I realize that's a terrible idea. But out of that, it's poking at a problem that we can maybe find a better solution to. So, Jake, I know you remember this, but right as we got into it, and I think we have another photo of this, but we moved up to the war room here, and problems emerged. Right, problems emerged. Like, we found that the story was kind of happening to our characters. Author intrusion for Andrew is writing the book, so he gets to tell you everything he needs to tell you about what's happening. But when you're in the visual format, these characters have to come alive and make choices that we can recognize. And I remember just running into that right away. And we think about character motivations and started talking about those and realizing that perhaps some of our characters weren't fully motivated. I'm thinking particularly about Janner and Tink and Lily, our key three. We really began to realize we're going to have to dig some things out to understand better what gets them up on a Tuesday morning. Not in the author way, like we know the journey we're on. Jake, talk to me about some of that. Like, for you, I know it was one of the first things we led into was trying to solve that for the kids, and then of course our villains.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's that. I know that I and you were previously aware of the experience that we did with the short, and we had discussed some of these things. I think in particular, Janner's drive, as it's really a lot of the first book is through his and you as a reader. And I think the real difference that we ran into, like you said, is the difference between literary material in prose, where you can, as a writer, get inside a character's head and kind of hear their thoughts and understand really them tick in turn. Again, kind of as Doug mentioned, when you are, when this is filmed entertainment, when it's a script, and you don't have the benefit of, a character's voiceover saying every single one of their thoughts. You're just watching them in their day, watching them take action. You're watching them come up against obstacles, have to evolve or not to overcome obstacles. And I think of having a series like this where there's so much material and we all know where Janner's going. We all know where Kalmar or Tank is going. We know where Lily is going eventually. But we did talk a lot kind of bringing her, eventual heroics up a little bit, pulling those forward into the first book. Led in the first book, a lot of things do happen to kind of the authors of which is what makes for great drama. great drama is never just a character sitting there and having things come at them and having them just react to those. A great hero is active and is someone who takes action on what they want. So I think that was like you're saying, it was a really massive first step. We tried our heads into each of our leads and really, like you're saying, what made them and how we could sort of bring some seeds of their eventual up into this first season.
Yeah, and I know that as we got into it, there's two things I want to note here. One, there is definitely a sense of fear. I don't know, you guys probably don't feel this, but I got a little bit of that where it's like, oh my, how are we going to solve that? Where it's like you do take the car apart and you realize that is very broken. Oh my, how, in our format, not that the story broke, I'm not saying Andrew's story broken, but in our format, we go to plug this in. It's like, that doesn't work there. Lauren, I know for you, Lily was one of those that stood out quickly with like, hey, y'all, can I just flag that Lily is just kind of hanging out a lot? She's got so much. And this is the thing. If you've read the books, everybody out there, you know that Lily's got this amazing journey. She just is such a cool character. And so you may look back on book one and think of all that. Well, but how does she behave in book one? Where is her, how is she involved in her story making choices? And that was something I know, Lauren, you particularly were like, hey, I want to champion for her a little bit and try to find ways to get her in the story. Talk about some of your feelings there and what we discovered.
Yeah, I mean, she's the little sister and I'm a little sister. And sometimes we just get dragged along. And I did feel that a little bit in the first book, where she's not quite as active of an agent. And I just knew there's so much more to her that we get to see. And I got excited about like, what can we do even in this first season to kind of bring out some of that dynamic and to play a little bit more with the dynamic of her and her brothers. Because I think in the first book, you get all of this wonderful setup between Tink and his brother, but not necessarily with Lily in the mix with them. So I don't know. I don't want to say spoilers, but I think there's some really great scenes where we were able to bring Lily in that she wasn't necessarily even there before. So we can kind of see like, okay, what does she do in this situation? Which got really exciting.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that comes up in that regard, I'll just say in the adaptation, that starts to get into the beats that we describe is in a book, there can be a bit more toing and froing, right? Where a character goes over to do this thing and then comes back, and that's chapter to chapter, and that just unfolds and you're fine. Well, in a series, you can feel a little claustrophobic, where like, oh man, we're back in that room again. Right. And it just feels like we're just going, and then we're back here. And certainly we had some of that going into town, Glipwood, and then back to their house. And like, can we economize here? Do we need that many trips? It's like, so I grew up when I was 11, we moved to a farm, homeschool family living on a farm outside of Colorado Springs. And the grocery store was half hour away. So you had to really be economical about your choices, right? And so I think in the same way, like I responded to like, hey, let's have the family go to town when they need to. Let's try to keep them in places. That meant allowing Lily to get to join in some of these to's and fro's that was in really exciting ways. Again, I don't want to spoil, but just know that fans, that Lily is going to be a part of some moments that maybe you didn't imagine. So that's all. As we get into that structure, let's talk about the beats. So here's a great shot. I actually have all these. So here they are. So we start this. That's a photo of Lauren working on these, but we do all these cards, right? So this was very specific, Jake, as I recall. You were like, hey, I got to have this particular size of thing, and it's got to be with a certain type of lined paper, so we can write out our beats. And so, this will take you beat by beat through a given episode. Here's a beat. I'm spoiling, but you're going to be fine. Poto and Lily trapping thwaps with Nugget's help. Nia signals for dinner time. So there you go. That's one of our beats. And you got to work all these beats in and figure out, do they all hold together? Oh, look, another cat. All right. That's Tabitha, the other office cat. That's happening. Okay. So anyways, so these beats. This was such an interesting process Jake, this is something that you, we mentioned earlier, 3 seasons of CBS SEAL Team. You had been a part of a lot of big multi-episode structures. You guys definitely were the heavyweights in the room on this. Talk about, seems so old school. Like, really, this is how television stories get told. But it was so useful. Tell us about, kind of your experience with this and how this is useful to identify a story.
I think you're correct in. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're correct in labeling it as fairly analog, but it is incredibly useful. That analog nature allows you to essentially. So the goal of this entire process is for the entire writer's room to be on the same page with every single beat of whichever episode we call it boarding. That's the process of writing out on cards, putting them up on a board, and then once the episode is broken, and in a network kind of is responsible for that episode, then gets up in front of the entire room and pitches sort of beat for beat to everybody in the room, so that they hear, just how it sounds, kind of up on its as an episode of, in this case, streaming television. And the goal of that is, really to kind of find holes, find the, like you said previously, the parts where maybe it lags because you're maybe being too close to the source material, and maybe you need to kind of compact so it's a little tighter, or hearing a character beat and just thinking like, I don't know, something about that doesn't sound quite right. And it's really the massive benefit of having a really kind of stocked writer's room with a lot of really smart people with complementary skill sets who all are invested in this one mission of getting the show off the board and not in some form that everybody agrees upon as we're all excited about this version of it. So it's obviously a very hectic process. We did a week, went through that process. We did a lot of pitching, but I think, as you probably experienced, you do find how much it gets episode by episode as you kind of, and it becomes really comfortable, and it really efficient as a way to just get everybody kind of all on the page before we all then went off to go write our own.
That's right. Yeah, and I think that this process it's very vulnerable too, just for your story, right? Because you're kind of laying it out pretty bare, and it's got to earn its keep, right? Scene by scene. Like, I like that scene, but does it feel like it was put there because it's supposed to be there, or has it earned it that it's part of our story, not just because it showed up in the book? That's when an adaptation kind of falls flat, right? It's like, this is here because it's on chapter 3 of the book, not because it actually earned. And when you get down to these kind of basic descriptions, this is a fun one that we can look at, but I can't tell them because it's a secret. But this is a good one. You're gonna like this one. This one's actually fun. We'll show you. So this is the cottage. They're headed. The first episode, we get to really experience Dragon Day. That was one of the things out of the short film that we built up for Dragon Day, and we didn't really get to show you a lot of that. And we're so excited. That one's going to be a ton of fun. And then some other things. We can't spoil that either. Okay, so we're going to fold this up and put that away. But when we get through this beats, this turns into writing assignments. So we will then take, and I will say this. One of the things that we did in this process, Doug, this was kind of awkward a little bit, I think, but is we told Andrew he couldn't come in the room. I know. Don't freak out. Don't freak out, everybody. It's totally cool. We didn't exclude the author. But one of the things that you're going to find in stories is there's only really one time that you get to hear a story fresh for the first time. So if you're in the kitchen working out all this stuff, and then we arrive at some conclusion, you got to have somebody at the table out there to objectively take it and taste it and go, that's good. Or send that back, it's garbage. That's what Andrew does. Totally. No, he's not. He's very generous. And so we actually had Andrew and then our art director, Garrett, and Keith, who's our animation supervisor, out of the room. And so we would work like crazy internally, so we knew all the bad paths. We knew all the dumb choices we'd made. And then some we thought were very clever. And then we'd sit down with them on Zoom and in person. It was kind of a combo, and pitch, right? And we'd go, all right, here's what we're thinking. And we have a picture of this. This is funny. This is actually Jake, you and Kenny, I think. Sorry, not this one. The pitch one. Can you go? There it is. Running through. And pitching is a whole thing. Doug, tell me about how much you love pitching.
Well, I like Jake's action stance there.
Oh, yeah. He's ready to go.
Yeah, pitching it's a stretch for me. I'm not I mean, it's a necessary part of script writing and story breaking. But yeah, it's a stretch for me to stand up there and tell a story. But it is a very valuable part of the process because you find out really quickly what isn't working or where there's still a hole in the story when you're standing there kind of exposed and trying to tell the story that you have.
Yep.
And suddenly you realize 5 seconds before you have to tell this part that, oh, that doesn't quite.
It is. It's the worst. You're pulling hard. There's a good tension on the cord. You're like, oh, yeah, this is a great narrative. I love this. Oh, loose rope. Shoot. And then you're standing there in front of Andrew, you're standing in front of Garrett, and they blame you. They're like, oh, you didn't work this out. I'm the spokesperson. So Kenny and Jake had a ton of experience doing this. I'd had a little bit of it. But I know Lauren, you and Doug, that was kind of a new vibe. It was like, okay, here we go. We're going to work this out. Lauren, did you enjoy it in the end? I know that it had its ups and downs.
No, it was good. It was good. I would say having to pitch the finale to the author himself when you're like,
right. Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm a little nervous. And so I didn't do the earlier one. So they're like, well, now you have to do the finale. And I was like, should have thought that through. And when like, I'm about to get to the end and there's nothing else to say. And I just have to look at him and see what he says. And his response was, I've got goosebumps. And I was like, oh, good. Okay, I think that's good.
Good ones or bad ones?
Yes.
Does it have anything to do with the pitch?
No, close the doors. It's drafty in here. All right, sorry, carry on. Dang it. So we referenced something here. Doug said it quickly, and I want to pause and say, we got to break the story. That sounds fairly violent and negative, but breaking the story, what's your definition of that around the room? Lauren, how about you? What's your version of breaking the story?
Yeah, to me it is, I really like the car parts analogy where it is like, I'm going to take it out piece by piece and just set all of the pieces on the floor. And to me, the most important part of that is like, I'm coming in with my hands very open. I'm going to hold every piece of this very loosely. Because there's that phrase that they have, right, where you have to kill your darlings, which is also fairly violent, but where they say, like, sometimes that thing that you think is really clever might not actually be the thing that serves the characters or that the character would actually do in that moment. So all of those great ideas that you're like, this is so smart or this is so funny, like, breaking the story is saying, like, how do these little pieces all actually fit together as a whole and serve the plot and serve the characters?
Yeah, that's great. That's a good description. And in our case, of course, all of us have read the books and are fans of it. So, and know that we're going to be pitching back to Andrew there's all these great bits, some of which we have to, it feels like, take out of Andrew's hands. I'm sorry, we're not going to include that, and then you got to justify why to not include it. Which I'm lobbying as much as anybody, like, hey, can we put that moment in? Can we actually hit that? Like, I'd love to do that. No, Chris, it doesn't make sense. It's like, it's obtuse. Okay, fine. It'll live in the books only, and that does happen, and it makes a better story, so it is part of that. One of the last efforts we did is then, it's why these are all color coded. for those of you looking at it. I think we have a picture of this, but we then went through and spent some time on these color coding, and I actually left all these on here. Each of the characters. So on this image here, we're actually working through episode by episode. What are the character arcs that each of our characters make? Did anybody just go away that we didn't intend to, right? Some of you may have noticed that in the short film, that Nugget Mask just disappears at one point. It just happened, and we just forgot. And so this was a necessary path to think about. This character starts here. They're in this episode. They make this choice, and are they on a good track? Are they idling around and standing around, for no reason? Do we need to motivate them, or are they making a false turn? Are they showing up and saying, "I've made a choice to do this thing," and that doesn't come from that? We got to motivate that. That doesn't make any sense at all, And so that was a pretty intense process. That was hard. I'll just be honest. That's part of serialized storytelling. Which I guess, Jake, tell us about that. So when you think about this multi-narrative, kind of tracking characters through lots of stuff, Marvel obviously does this on a massive scale. A lot of television series do. That was unique to our series, tracking all these characters through this season, making sure they're set up well for season 2. Talk about that process and how important it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would equate it to braiding a rope, and the strength of that rope relies upon all of the strands being woven together correctly to sort of sustain the tension to do its job. And I think in serial you need to keep everyone's story alive episode to episode, and you really care to have somebody reach the end of an episode and be like, wow, that was really cool. If that one character, there's a question I had from last episode that hasn't been answered. And so helpful part doing what we did, where we were color coding all these cards, laying each episode through across 6 episodes and making sure that we weren't losing anybody. And I think it got more the latter half of the season where the begins to pick up. Suddenly keeping track of characters involves these really big, you're having to intercut between a lot of large propulsive movements of story. It's the trick to make sure that you're sustaining all of the necessary mystery, drive, and action without losing anybody in the mix. And that's where it really helps to kind of have all the scenes up visually so that you can see, I'm not, Janner is coded blue, and there's not a lot of blue on the back half of 105. We really need to consider, is there some beat pull forward? Do we need to create some of the other material? So just that, that everybody has the query in each episode, and that we're not track of anybody.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that's interesting about this process for the fans at home is that so that we all this work. I remember this part where we were tracking these characters is just before it was near the end of the week, just before we pitched the final run, and we really felt like we had solved a bunch of stuff. And I can't remember what we came across something here that was one of those like, oh shoot, and had to back up a number of episodes to try to figure out how to fix it way back in episode 2 or 3, and like make sure that we had the right payoff, or they've got this information too early, or just that kind of weaving. So it's interesting that you can't just silo off an episode either, right? You can't just say, well, we're all done with this episode. No, it may be influenced by a need that we have in a later episode to pull an idea forward or set a character up for that kind of thing, and make sure it works. At the very end of this, when we were done, we did, as Lauren said, we went back and pitched, right? So we said, okay, we're going to do one big run, and it was pretty exhausting. But Jay, do you mind demonstrating a little bit about, just give us a taste of a pitch? You're so good at it, and I'd love for our fans to kind of get a taste of what when we say a pitch, what it actually sounds and feels like.
Sure, I can do my best. Obviously, I don't have any of the cards in front of me. Maybe let me see if I can bring something up here. Yeah. Let's see.
Totally putting him on the spot here. He's going to do like the biggest spoiler ever. So hang on, everybody. Here it comes.
Well, I'll try to do something
no
that everybody
fan.
knows, which is, yeah. So here's just an example of pitching, on Dragon Day, we're with the Igiby family as they're about to go into town. And again, I don't know, Chris, how much of any of these have changed.
Oh, no, but that's the point is this is the pitch material. We'll talk about that in a second, what happens after this, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so it would be something like this. All right, so execute your Igiby Cottage morning. We're with Poto as he finished Andy the cart horse into his traces. The Igiby kids climb aboard. Everybody's super excited. They're all ready for Dragon Day. The kids are talking a mile a minute about everything they're excited for on the day where they're finally allowed to go into town. And it's the Fang presence as oppressive, right? Like it's a little bit more free. There's a little something extra in the air. And Nia follows, making sure everybody's loaded into the wagon, and she's carrying this sealed box with her. And as she does, the kid kind of react. What is in? Smells awful. What could it be? Of course, we will reveal later on. What's in that box? Loaf, which is the toll that they're going to have to pay to Commander Norm to actually get into town and be allowed to, hang out with everybody in Glipwood and have fun. And it's a toll that Norm is happy to extract from everybody as they're coming into town for Dragon Day. So everybody gets loaded into the wagon, stops everyone, and reminds them that, hey, I understand everybody is super excited about Dragon Day, and I know, as you should be, it's going to be a great day. But just remember, we have these rules, right? Make sure that whatever you do, you don't get in trouble, right? Stick polite. If Fang's angry, get out of sight. They have these rules as a family that allow them to kind of stay under the radar, because for whatever mysterious reason that we may learn by the end of season, these kids are special. And there's something different about them, and we're going to see that happen here in pilot. So it's like a very all over the place version, but that's
good job. That's a good pitch. Yeah, and so fans at home, you can imagine Jake. It was well done, but going through every beat all the way through, and it's kind of like oral storytelling, right? You're hearing it out in the air, and it changes from even to your point. It's in the cards here. You're hearing it alive, and your imagination is going, oh, I love that. I wonder about this. And I remember in this moment actually going, hey, have we captured everyone's opinions? And the cards may not get this, but it was certainly something that I had to carry forward when I went to the story department of, what does Tink think about today? What's he most excited about? What is Janner most excited about? What is Lily excited about? What is Poto not excited about? That's always a fun one. And what's Nia thinking, right? And can we make sure we capture everybody? Right, that they're not just the family. They're not just a block, right? They have ideas, opinions. It's exactly what this process does. But you can imagine, folks at home, this journey all the way through an episode really kind of helps expose that and figure out all the beats you need. So, it was a great process. It left us with all this stack of material. And from here, then, each of the writers will take a script. So this becomes this casting process where they're like, hey, I like that story. I really want episode this, and can I have that one as my writing assignment? And we break up the scripts that way, and everybody takes and goes and writes some, and they come back and review and kind of put them through the process, and then you move forward. And in animation, this is really interesting because, of course, this is now where your story department takes over. So those are the folks who have to visualize it in storyboarding, and it's a whole fresh take on it. It is kind of taking it apart again because you're putting it up on screen and going, less talking. That's actually been, I haven't told you guys this, but Andrew's number one note so far on episode 1 particularly has been less talking. Which is funny coming from a writer that he's like, yeah, can they not talk in this scene? Can they just like act? So because there is so much that we can accomplish visually that you don't need to say as much, right? It's been delightful. So then story department then hands off to animation and we go make our show. and we get to see it yet again. So one of the nights I want to mention, we sat down outside and talked through, what about all of Wingfeather Saga? Like, what about all 4 books? How do we tell all of it? Here's season 1. We're going to set a really good foundation for who these characters are and what we love about them. And then we sat back and said, okay, what about the rest of the story? What are its rhythms? And got to dream about, what is season 2? What is season 3? All this kind of thing. And it was, I'll just tell you, fans at home, we have a lot of seasons ahead of us. Very exciting to think about it. And they do not follow the books. They follow story arcs, right? So let's take it. We pick up season 2 at this point. Where do we stop it? Where's a good finish for that story thread that takes us through? And then what's the next one go? Well, as you guys know, you guys were so, all of our investors and everybody helping us to tell the story back in the early summer, we've been hard at work. And building season 1 and getting it going, and we're excited to deliver that right at the end of next year. We'll have some more dates coming out soon, but we've also started thinking about season 2, because we want to make sure season 2 comes along to you all not too long after season 1. That's kind of a bum deal, right? When you see the first version of something, you're like, and if that takes a long time, it can be really frustrating. So to that end, we started dreaming about season 2, and we decided to go ahead and put out a little kind of placeholder, a little save the date thing that is hey, we're thinking about season 2, and we want to get that going sooner than later. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but we made some artwork to help kind of frame out season 2, what it might be about, so that we could hopefully get to work on that before we have to wait all the way to the end. Because if we wait to the end, we finish season 1, it releases, and then we start on season 2, we got another, it could be 2 years between season 1 and 2. That's a long time. And we want to make that closer. So to that end, we put a little artwork together to announce season 2. And I want to show that to you guys here. Dun-dun! Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Right?
that looks great.
Neil looks pretty intense.
We're not in Glipwood anymore, folks. There's a lot happening here. If you've read the stories, I think you know a lot about what's happening. I don't want to spoil it for those of you that haven't read the stories, but season 2 finds our family in a very different place. And so we're excited to set this out here. We did this as a test of waters. Hey, folks, all of you have been a part of supporting us and helping us to make season 1. What do you think? You want to be a part of helping us do season 2? And so we put out a little placeholder on angel funding, and you guys have responded. It's been beautiful. We've earned almost $600,000 in people committing, saying, hey, I'd like to be a part of that. We're not selling any shares. This is totally just a, hey, what do you think? And that's been out for a week and a half, something like this. And that's great. So I think that means, Lauren and Jake and Doug, we're going to have some good work ahead of us very soon. So yay. Yeah, very exciting. I want to say thank you so much, Lauren and Jake and Doug, for taking the time to come hang with us today and tell us a little bit about the story process. Hopefully everybody at home, this was insightful and interesting to you. Sorry we can't spoil everything, but trust us. It'll be worth it later. There's some really fun ideas that have emerged. And I can't wait actually to show you all what's happened coming out of the story departments, because there's also new contributions that are happening even as we speak, which involves, I'll just say as a teaser, figuring out really specifically the Fang language, how they all talk, you're really getting into that. Like, what are the common phrases they use? What is the way that they talk? And we did some breaking on that, and then we kind of went further with it. And what did you call it? Fanguish? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fanguish. That's our term. It's silly, but yeah, working through that has been really fun. But thank you all so much for jumping in with us today. I'll let you guys go. Good to see you, Doug. You can sit here with me. It's fine. Okay. I wanted to say, too, to all of you guys at home, that we are coming up on our 4-year anniversary for the short film releasing. It was Christmas 4 years ago that we were celebrating having made this short film pilot, which set up what we're able to do today in the series, and it's so exciting. We have pulled out of the archives, the old vaults, a bunch of material, and have been starting to share that on our social media and out on our YouTube channel. That just kind of the process it took to make that short film. which was so important in answering a lot of questions. So if you want to check us out on Wingfeather Saga at YouTube or at Facebook, you'll see there's a couple of these talking about like the storyboarding process and layout and animation and some of that stuff that if you're into this story and into animation is probably going to be really interesting to you. So feel free to go hop out there and see that stuff. Thank you so much for taking some time today to join us. I was really glad to have you. As a reminder, we did open up casting. And so if you want to be a part of our casting process, go to wingfeathersaga.com/casting. And today is the last day, midnight tonight, for our first round of casting. If you want to be a part of that, all the information is out there on that website. And we'd love to hear from you. Literally. That joke's been made a couple times. Literally hear from you in an audition. It'd be super fun. Again, I'm Chris Wall, producer of the Wingfeather Saga animated series. Andrew sends his regrets, not able to join us today. He is out on tour, and hopefully some of you get to see him on the road. Doug, thanks again for joining.
Yeah,
and
happy to be here.
Glad to get to talk for a little bit. Hope you guys have a great evening and a wonderful Christmas. We'll be talking to you again soon after the new year. Again, if you have fan art you want to share with us over the holidays, we'd love to see it. Tag us on that, and we look forward to seeing it. Hope you all have a good evening, and we'll talk to you again soon.